in the port city of Port Elizabeth, South Africa, where the ocean meets the industrial docks, a quiet storm was brewing. Between the years 1990 and 1997, women and children began vanishing without a trace. Their bodies would later surface in the brush, by the roadside, or in the shadows of an abandoned field. At first, police believed it was a mere coincidence. But what they didn't realize was that it was one man behind it. He was a father, a husband, and a truck driver, and he was hunting the forgotten. This is the story of Stuart Wilkin, the man who murdered his own daughter and many others who never saw him coming. Born in 1966 in Boksburg, Stuart Wilkin grew up in a fractured home. He claimed his stepfather beat and sexually abused him, and that rage and humiliation fermented into something way more monstrous. He drifted through jobs, truck stops, and broken relationships until he landed in Port Elizabeth, now called Gqeberha. It was there, among the coastal highways and the trucker routes, that the butcher of Port Elizabeth was born. The earliest murders linked to Stuart Wilkin date back to the year 1990, but I will say records from this time in South Africa were fragmented. One of the first confirmed victims was a young boy believed to be Stuart Wilkin's stepson. This happened around 1990 or 1991. Again, the records are fragmented. Police would actually never release the child's full name, but Stuart Wilkin confessed that he later strangled the boy in a fit of rage, saying that, quote unquote, the child reminded him of himself. It was the start of his pattern, killing those who stirred up old wounds. And by 1992, Port Elizabeth's red light district was changing. Sex work had become common along the docks and the truck routes. That's where Stuart Wilkin found his next victim. Between 1993 and 1996, at least 6 sex workers were murdered by the same hand. The first one would be Sonja Brown, who was 25 at the time and murdered in the year of 1993. Sonja Brown was a known sex worker and last seen near the city center. Her body would later be discovered near Marine Drive, strangled and sexually assaulted. The second would be Bernadette Grobler, who was the age of 25 and murdered in the year 1994. Her body was found dumped near a dirt track outside of Port Elizabeth. Stuart Wilkin confessed to killing her after soliciting her services. He said, quote unquote, he didn't want her to suffer anymore. This would become a phrase that Steve Wilkin would repeat for multiple of other victims, a phrase that detectives would hear him say multiple other times. The third victim of the 6 that were killed during this time period was an unidentified sex worker who was a female, somewhere in her mid-20s, murdered before the start of the year 1995. Her body would be found near a river nearby. Police noted signs of strangulations and bite marks consistent with Stuart Wilkin's dental patterns. The fourth victim out of the 6 during this time period would be an unidentified child victim who was a male approximately 10 years old. He would be murdered at the start of 1995. This child was found in Forest Hill. Stuart Wilkins said, quote unquote, he committed the murder because he wanted to feel powerful again. The fifth victim out of the six during this time period would be an unidentified female victim who would be murdered during the year of 1996. Her remains were found near the outskirts of Port Elizabeth. Wilkins later told investigators that he strangled her after a religious vision, claiming voices told him to, quote unquote, release her soul. And the last victim of the six would be another unnamed sex worker who would be murdered in late 1996. The body would be found near the river, but off of the river in an industrial area. When the body was found, it had been partially mutilated, which happened most likely after the killing. And by now, police knew they were hunting a serial killer, but they had no suspect and no pattern they could predict. And no one imagined the next victim would be his own child. In January of 1997, Stuart Wilkins' killings reached its most disturbing point. His 11-year-old daughter, Charmaine Wilson, had confronted him about his relationship with her mother. At the time, this would be his ex-wife. Out of a fit of rage, that same night, he strangled her to death. Later, he told detectives, quote unquote, I did it to save her soul. She was too pure for this world. Charmaine's death would unravel everything, and it would be the murder that finally led to his arrest. After Charmaine's body was discovered, police tracked Stuart Wilkins down in Port Elizabeth. He was arrested in January of 1997. During his questioning, he stunned detectives by confessing to at least 10 murders, detailing dates, locations, and names. He claimed he had two spirits living inside him, one which was Stuart, or the father, and the other, only known as the Beast. He described his crimes calmly, even proudly, recounting sexual assaults, necrophilia, and in one case, cannibalism. He said, when I killed them, I felt peace. In 1998, Stuart Wilkins stood trial on 7 counts of murder and 2 counts of sodomy. The evidence was overwhelming. His confessions matched every crime scene. He was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to 7 life terms in prison. After the sentencing, he had showed no remorse and no emotion. He simply said that he was at peace now, and that, quote unquote, the killings had stopped. To this day, Stuart Wilkins remains one of South Africa's most disturbing serial killers. He preyed on the forgotten, sex workers, children, and the powerless, knowing the police wouldn't notice. His victims, when remembered in order, tell a story of a man whose violence evolved over time, from rage to ritual to delusion. He murdered for control, for release, and eventually for faith. The butcher of Port Elizabeth wasn't just killing people, he was killing the pieces of himself he couldn't bear to see reflected back. And if you found this video informative, consider subscribing for more deep dives into the darkest corners of history. And if you'd like us to cover other killers, cults, or psychological case studies, drop a comment below. Thank you for watching. Stay curious and stay grounded.